Good evening, wherever you may be across the nation, around the world. I'm George Norrie, and welcome to Coast AM. Next hour, we're going to talk about your future. It's called the Millennium Project, and stand by for that. Here's what's happening. Well, a bizarre story. A picture that appears to show a dead woman has been uploaded to Facebook by the woman's husband, also alleged to have been the killer. The 31-year-old man, South Miami resident Derek Medina, went to police to tell them that he had a domestic dispute with his wife and then shot her. Medina appears to have uploaded then a photograph of his dead wife to his Facebook account. By this afternoon, it had been shared 173 times, much more now. Bizarre. Now listen to this story. Pinned inside her mangled Mercedes, seriously injured, fading fast, Katie Lentz turned to her rescuers on the lonely open stretch of a Missouri highway and asked them to pray. Struck head-on by a drunk driver on Sunday morning, emergency workers had been battling for an hour and a half to free Lentz, but to no avail. But as they joined hands, out of nowhere, a Catholic priest appeared, even though there were no bystanders and the road was blocked. He offered a prayer and an instruction to the rescuers that they would now be able to free her. Suddenly, heavy equipment needed to cut through the metal arrived from a nearby town, and Lentz was pulled from the wreck in time to be saved. But then they turned to thank the priest. He was gone. Turning to thank the guardian angel, as they call it, who had arrived from nowhere at their lowest ebb, the emergency crews just simply could not find him. The highway had been blocked for a quarter of a mile each way. And during the hour-and-a-half rescue, no bystanders and parked cars were anywhere near the crash site in Missouri. Those few witnesses said the priest looks like the deceased Walter Matthau. You know, we just got done talking with Rosemary Ellen Guiley about angels, and I'm going to bring her on for a moment. Rosemary, this got to be one of the most fantastic stories I've heard in a long time.
It's extraordinary, George, and it has all the classic characteristics of a true angel encounter.
Everything we have been talking about over the years about how these angelic interventions just simply occur, people turn around to thank the person, and they're gone. You remember the one about the person who called in? He was drowning in the ocean. He had swam out too far. And he was going down, and he looked up and saw a hand come through the water, and he reached and grabbed it, and it pulled him up, and he was gasping for air. He turned around to thank the person who pulled him out. There was nobody there. He was all alone. This happens time and time again.
It does. I have stories of people who have been saved from the brink of disaster in all kinds of situations. And there's a mysterious person who just appears. They know just what to do. They calm everybody. They pull all the chestnuts out of the fire, and then suddenly they are gone. Nobody knows who they were, where they went, where they came from, or where to find them.
The witnesses say now that this priest looked like the deceased Walter Matthau, the great actor. I'm wondering if Walter has come back to do some angelic things.
I do believe that people can be angel-like in their actions, but when these beings appear, when angels come and rescue us as mysterious strangers, they always have an appearance that is calming to people, that doesn't startle people, that seems very familiar. And oftentimes they have very piercing, intense eyes.
All right, Rosemary, thank you. Just an incredible story. It really is. If you don't believe in angels, after reading this story and hearing about it, it'll change your mind. Do a search, Karen Black. You'll know the face, you might not know the name, but Karen Black, the Oscar-nominated star of the groundbreaking films of the 60s and 70s like Easy Rider, 5 Easy Pieces, and Nashville, has died at the age of 74. She succumbed to cancer after a 2-year battle. Federal scientists investigating an unusually high number of dead bottlenose dolphins washing up on the East Coast. The carcasses are showing up at a rate that is 7 times higher than usual. More than 120 dead animals have been discovered since June from New Jersey to Virginia. They really don't know what is going on, what the cause is. Now, they're suspecting that there's some infectious pathogen but that's really all they know right now. The television personality on CNN, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, says that he has reversed his opposition to medical marijuana and has admitted that he even tried the drug himself. And he said, basically, I'm here to apologize. I apologize because I did not look hard enough until now. Well, let me tell you something. Back in 1997, I'm doing my local St. Louis show, and I had a couple guests on, people who were taking cannabis for medicinal purposes. They were in excruciating pain. They could not take pharmaceutical pain pills. It made them sick. So they turned to this. They turned to cannabis. One of the individuals on my show was simply crying, breaking down, saying, I have to use this. It works for me. I don't get sick when I take it. It was at that point, in 1997, I realized that the use of medical marijuana for medicinal purposes helped a lot of people. And I've always been a staunch proponent of that, telling people on all my shows that it works. And it's good to know that the CNN doctor finally admits that as well. Drinking cocoa every day may help older people keep their brains healthy. A study of 60 elderly people with no dementia found that 2 cups of cocoa a day improved blood flow to the brain in those that had problems to start with. Those participants whose blood flow improved also did better on memory tests at the end of the study. How about that? Researchers say that they're opening up a tomb for the first time in centuries as part of their long-running effort to identify the bones of a woman who is thought to be the model for Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa portrait. They think they're getting very close. Time to check in with Peter Davenport from the National UFO Reporting Center to pick up this week's reports on UFOs. What's out there, Peter?
Well, thank you for having me on, as always, George. It's always a pleasure to be here, and I'd like to start by saying I've enjoyed some of your recent programs. The program with Dr. Ed Close and Dr. Neppy, Vernon Neppy, was very, very interesting. It's a pleasure to see hard science addressed on this program and keep us abreast of what's going on in some of the advancing fields of technology, but found that a very interesting program. I may have some breaking news tonight, George. It was just 1 hour ago at 9:12 p.m. Pacific time, as I was preparing for this program, I stepped outside to watch an overflight of the International Space Station tonight. I loved going out and watching it. I never seemed to tire of it. I saw it go overhead Harrington, Washington, my residence here in eastern Washington state, and there was an object, a distinct object, the size of the space station itself, trailing the space station tonight. Now, I may be mistaken. There may have been a launch recently of a satellite scheduled to rendezvous with the space station, but I cannot find it. If anybody can help me with this, or if there's anybody in the North Pacific or Oregon or Washington or Idaho or Montana or Canada who saw this phenomenon tonight, I would beg them to please sit down at their computer and submit a written report using our online report form. Ironically, just as I was watching this object pass over eastern Washington, a group of people, one of whom is a retired fighter pilot for the U.S. Air Force, 33 years in the military, saw a cluster of 7 lights, I believe to the north of Lewiston, Idaho. They were completely flabbergasted by what they saw. We're awaiting more reports from other members of that group of witnesses. I just received the written report from this gentleman who called. But there are a lot of things going on. Very interesting events in Florida last night. There was a launch of a Delta IV rocket at about 8:29 p.m. People were outside watching it after the launch. Approximately 5 to 7 minutes after the launch, they were witness to a cluster of very strange orange objects hovering in the night sky. One woman in Sanford, Florida, a regular Coast listener who had heard me on many occasions talk about UFOs, submitted an excellent report. She has seen many, many launches out of Cape Canaveral. she said what she saw approximately 5 minutes after the launch had nothing to do with that launch. She's sure of it. So a lot going on, and I really appreciate the opportunity to bring this information to the Coast listeners. My last appearance, I predicted that July would be an unusual month with regard to the number of reports submitted to the National UFO Reporting Center. I was correct. We had almost 1,200 reports last month. Roughly 300 is typical, so something clearly is going on.
Peter Davenport, the UFOreportingcenter.com, UFOcenter.com is his website. PayPal. PayPal is rolling out a new trial for British consumers to see if they really can leave their wallets at home, recently kicking it off in London. The test includes 12 different merchants set up to accept PayPal payments. Now, what's so unusual about that? Well, using the PayPal app, shoppers can see nearby participating merchants highlighted on their mobile phones, and then they can check into a certain store by clicking on its name and pay for an item by simply sliding an animated pin down the screen. The person's name and photo then pops up on the store's payment system, and after the customer agrees to pay for the item, the cashier clicks on the person's photo to send the payment through. Here we go again. New technology, and Lauren Weinstein will join us next on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast. I'm George Norrie. Lauren Weinstein has been involved with the development of the Internet for decades. He has seen it all happen. He's an expert in privacy issues and technology. And here we go again, Lauren. More technology, this time with PayPal. Is it going to work?
Yeah, it might in this case. This is what they're trying to do, essentially, is add a layer of anti-fraud protection. So what they're saying is that people participating in this program, and keep in mind it's a small pilot right now, as I understand it, when they go into a store and want to make a purchase from their phone via their PayPal account, the merchant will see the profile photo that's associated with that account so that they can verify that the person standing in front of them is the person who actually owns that account. So, what they're doing basically is leveraging the ability of people to have profile photos already in place on their PayPal accounts to add an additional layer of identification. And given the amount of fraud that's floating around, generally in online purchasing these days, this seems like a reasonable thing to do. It's not going to be foolproof. It doesn't really have any negative privacy implications because the photo is only being used to verify someone's identity. It's not like you're scanning a whole big crowd and trying to identify who all those people are or something like that.
What's going on with information these days, Lauren, and technology? I mean, it just seems, the old saying was, computers speed up every 2 years and, new technology, but it seems to be going even faster.
Yeah, well, it's expanding very, very rapidly and along a number of different vectors. One of the things that has fundamentally changed the way we look at information now is the ability to store massive quantities of it very, very cheaply. Before the advent of very, very cheap, relatively cheap, mass storage devices, disk drives, and now solid-state devices of various sorts, a lot of decisions tended to have to be made about what information you were going to keep and what kind of information you were going to throw away. Now it's just become affordable to hold on to a lot more. I won't say everything because there's a lot of data being generated, but you can hold a lot more data for a lot longer now, which lets you do a lot more with it. And of course, that kind of brings us into the whole controversy surrounding NSA and intelligence programs and things, because that's one obvious large user of mass data.
Earlier, they talked about, shutting down those embassies last Sunday and, through this Saturday. But they cited, of course, hearing al-Qaeda chatter. And, of course, they were tooting their horn that it was because of what they've been doing they were able to do that. I kind of figured something like that would come out.
Yeah, though they actually were pretty cagey in this case, because they did not assert that the NSA programs that are the controversial ones that everyone's been talking about recently, they didn't assert that those particular programs were involved in that particular alert, because obviously there's a lot of other signal intelligence going on. But I think it's fair to say that a lot of people kind of looked at that at that alert and the lack of detail and just the broad scope.
Yes, and I'm going to add to this report. All right, U.S. Canada, E&E News, Energy News, official films. Burp event at Giant, Louisiana. Cinco intense bubbling across several large areas. Also yesterday, senior scientist plume of Fukushima nuclear material from March 2011 to hit U.S. West Coast within a year. Will go on for years as contamination has been released since disaster began. Live, this is One for the Record. I'm Diana, and today is August 10th, 2013. And here is your news updates for today. I'm going to try to do it early since I have to work tonight. Okay. The Watchers watching the world. Deadly eruption of Mount Rokatenda, Paluwe, Indonesia. Max is talking back there behind me. Alrighty then. That's what's the same thing on the on the Extinction Protocol 2012 and beyond. So no need to repeat that. Okay, the E&E News, Energy News. Fukushima, Japan. Japan government in chaos, completely out of control at Fukushima. Melted reactor cores contaminating Pacific with full range of radioactive material. Also today, TV. Very likely some of Fukushima's melted cores have moved into the earth. It's beyond containment right now. Yesterday, watch. Young kids play in ocean nearby leaking Fukushima plant. Real cause for concern over radiation levels in sand. Alrighty. Also yesterday, TEPCO, it's unforgiven that radioactive material is leaking out of control from Fukushima plant. This is a very significant problem. Also yesterday, PBS, 30 times more strontium-90 than cesium at Fukushima. The strontium is much more dangerous. This is a problem. Researchers far from plant surprised by how much continuing radioactivity they found, like ongoing experiment. Alrighty then. And then the Louisiana sinkhole has had another significant large burp of gas bubbles coming up. Alrighty then. Stay tuned. I'm going to attach a whole bunch of things for you guys. Alright. Take care, and I'll see you again on the flip side. It is almost one day down of the weekend. Still one more to go. Alright. Take care. Be safe, and stay tuned. And also day before yesterday, August 8th, explosion at U.S. nuclear plant triggered emergency alert. It was of significant force to damage permanent structures or equipment within the protected area. This is at the Sharon Harris plant. I repeat, this is at the Sharon Harris plant in North Carolina. Alrighty then. Almost didn't add this for when I had to try to redo a report. Yeah, that's current nuclear plant in North Carolina. Heads up. Alright. Everyone please be safe, be ready for anything. Alright, take care, and I'll see you again tomorrow.
Where the president goes for his physical, Supreme Court justices, senators, you know, it's the biggie, right? It's the most exotic and highly qualified medical organization and research and clinic in the world. Well, they developed in 1992 a branch called the OAM, the Office of Alternative Medicine, which has many divisions for the last 20 years things like past life therapy. They study guided visual imagery, shamanic things, acupuncture, Tibet medicine, Ayurvedic medicine of India, East India. So the federal government and your tax dollars is paying for New Age research.
Who would think that? Nobody would know that.
Nobody would know that. But, well, in my soul healing book, obviously, in the beginning, I list the NIH. They can go to the website. They can go to the website and see all the lists and the categories. But past life therapy is part of it. And the reason being is because they realize that shamanic techniques, and these are all shamanism. Everything we're doing here, hypnosis, acupuncture, all these are shamanic techniques. And shamanism works. And the shrinks that are involved with them, the psychiatrists, they want to know why. Because their stuff is just prescribing medicine, and they know they're not curing anything. They're just treating symptoms. So, see, drugs used in allopathic or conventional medicine are toxic. They drive the disease process inwardly. And, for example, a person who has arthritis will be taking prednisone, which is a steroid, and it will cause many, many side effects. So you don't want to do that. You want to overcome the cause of it, and the cause is energy-based. The energy works through the body. The only reason we get sick is that the capacity for healing our system or to restore balance is exceeded by the forces of imbalance. So healing is a process of becoming whole. You have spiritual causes of our illnesses. It can be karmic, like actions in a past life, for example, possession by spirits.
That's a big weight, too, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. A psychic attack can do it. We talked about that many times. The influence of a deceased ancestor on our soul. Sometimes they don't mean to harm you. They're just sort of like hanging around because they're on the lower astral plane and they're panicking. Conventional medicine rejects this hypothesis, of course, and focuses only on the physical or organic causes. So what can medicine do? What's medicine good for? Allopathic or conventional medicine? Well, it can help with trauma, acute bacterial, fungal, parasitic infections, surgical emergencies, hormonal deficiencies, infectious disease, etc., by immunization. Fine, no problem.
And it's very good for that.
Right. However, what can it not do? It does not do. It cannot cure cancer. It cannot combat viral infections. Cancer is viral, of course. It cannot cure allergies, manage psychosomatic illness, or cure most chronic degenerative diseases.
Or the common cold.
Only energy healing can deal with that, because energy controls the physical body via the higher self, subconscious mind connection. Now, here's an example to show you about a very exotic example of soul healing that I documented in my soul healing book. This deals with the Catholic Church, of all places. There is a healing center in southern France near Lourdes, near the French Pyrenees. Legend has it that the Virgin Mary appeared there in 1858 to a French peasant girl named Bernadette Soubirous.
That's right.
And the water from the spring discovered at that time of this holy apparition is believed to effect miraculous cures. The Catholic Church has documented over 60 miracles. And
people are drinking, swimming, they're doing everything.
Right.
There,
So here's an example of Vittorio Michelli. He was inducted into the Italian army and in 1961 complained of pains in his left hip. A comprehensive series of medical tests revealed that Michelli had cancer, a sarcoma of the left pelvis, right? The condition worsened by August of that year. X-rays showed almost complete destruction of the left pelvis. Michelli was placed in a hip-to-toe cast and treated with chemotherapy. After 2 months of this treatment, no improvement occurred. The chemotherapy was discontinued. In May of 1963, Michelli finally went to Lourdes. Okay, by now he had severe and continuous pain, loss of appetite, could no longer stand. Immediately after...
Sounds like he was at death's door, Bruce.
Right, yeah, exactly, very good. Immediately after plunging himself into the very cold waters of Lourdes, and it's very cold up there, his appetite improved and he no longer experienced pain. But it got better. Michelli started walking within a month. X-rays showed a regression of the sarcoma, which completely disappeared in 1974, which medicine would say is impossible, okay? He began working in a factory in the 70s where he was required to stand for 8 to 10 hours a day, and bureau records show that Michelli's left hip and leg are the same as normal. So you can't explain this by chemotherapy and whatever else they did with him. This is energy. This is you might say it's an energy vortex in Lourdes, and Michelli was cured not by medicine, but by the energy of Lourdes and the vortex that was around there. So that's an example of a very classic, well-documented example. But I want to give you an example of an energy healing from a time traveler perspective.
From a time travel?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a patient of mine I described her. This is from my time travel from a future book. Eileen, I call her, not her real name. She was around 35 years old. She was a female patient who had an incurable case of cancer in her pancreas. Pancreatic cancer is a very high mortality rate.
That's right. That's what did Patrick Swayze.
Right. People get it from diabetes, things like the pancreatitis, etc. Okay. But is about to take her life. She's in the hospital. She's going to die. And that's what the physician tells her. A new young doctor comes into her room. He told her he was a resident and that he would be conducting an examination for the purpose of recommending her for chemotherapy. And she thought it was kind of odd because she was told, wrap up your life, you're done, But she said, okay, Eileen thought this was rather odd since her regular oncologist had clearly stated there was nothing more he could do. Eileen then consented to the exam, and the young blonde-haired doctor with piercing blue eyes, does ring a bell?
Mm-hmm.
Proceeded to shine a pen flashlight emitting a blue-red light in the area of the pancreas. When she asked why he was doing that, he simply smiled at her. The resident left, and Eileen discussed this very unusual visit with her oncologist the following day, when he was running a series of tests on her. Okay? She left the hospital and received a very unusual call from her own doctor a few days later. The oncologist called Eileen and said, look, tests show no cancer is present.
Oh,
must be a mistake, must be an error. Please come back to the hospital. Sorry to bother you, but we have to redo these tests. We have legal responsibilities. She did a complete series of tests. The cancer was free. Now, the end of the story is she was abducted several months later, and I did the regression to find out what was going on. The abduction demonstrated that a time traveler posed as the young resident in the 33rd century. He telepathically told her that it wasn't her time yet, and that occasionally these chrononauts, that's what I call time travelers, save lives of people they observe and empower. Now, here's the thing about the pen flashlight. This is what's called an intergalactic line healer. We're going to discuss the intergalactic lines when we discuss ascension. It's used to regenerate lost limbs. Time travelers from our future can regenerate a lost limb, like you see on a lizard, okay? And they can also bring a dead person back to life. They can reanimate.
Like Lazarus.
Right, if they catch them within 24 hours.
Hold on for a second, Bruce. We're going to hit this break. We're going to come right back. Split show tonight. Dr. Bruce Goldberg with us for a couple hours, so we will be right back. We'll talk about time travelers on Coast to Coast AM. Welcome back, Dr. Bruce Goldberg with us. So, Bruce, the time traveler who was healing the woman had a device. Sounds like Star Trek, doesn't it?
Well, it does, but it's an intergalactic line healing, and we're going to discuss the intergalactic lines when I detail the ascension mechanism. But they have, the point is that time travel in the future, they die. They can resuscitate them in 24 hours. They can replace lost limbs. They have advanced technology. Who can possibly imagine what it's going to be like in 1,300 years in medicine? All the futurists in the world, they can make all the guesses they want, but they don't really know. But listen, I do want to say that I've gotten a lot of emails about this, and I wanted to comment from your audience. They've asked me if I would be willing to do what I did last time with you several times, and the answer is yes. I will reincarnate my offer about if they order my Exploring the Fifth Dimension book, they'll get the free CD, Fifth Dimensional Travel, because we're talking about Fifth Dimension. And they must order the book through my site, not through Amazon. They won't deal with that, just my site to get the free CD. And those that don't have a computer and don't want to read a book or anything, just want to get an exercise, if you don't have a computer, if you call my 1-800-KARMA-4U number, 1-800-527-6248, I will send you a free written exercise of the fifth dimensional travel. But to get the CD, which is experiential, of course, you have to order the book from the site itself to do that. And by the way, also on my homepage, I do have a clip just for your audience about your Beyond Belief show that we did.
By the way, I had fun doing that.
Wasn't that fun? And wasn't that regression interesting about that woman? How it correlated her past life to her current. That was just I didn't I didn't know this. This was we're kind of teasing the audience about it, but if they actually go to the archives of Gaiam and check that entire episode, they'll see what we're talking about. But it's always fun to work with you. You're radio and TV. TV is a different ballgame, but even more fun. But anyway, so I just wanted to thank you. I also want to I want to thank you for your very kind review of Exploring the Fifth Dimension.
Oh, you're welcome. I meant these words.
This is what he says. Dr. Goldberg guides you into a world beyond your wildest expectations. Highly recommended. You're a good friend. I want to discuss now, phase 2 here is the out-of-body experiences. See, when a person clinically dies, crosses into spirit, their soul leaves the physical body and occupies a spiritual body, let's say the astral body, going to the astral plane. So out-of-body experiences are natural. They explain what happens in between lives. They also explain and research Dr. Charles Tart among others, have shown that dreams or dreams nightly are actually out-of-body experiences. Okay, and there's lots of evidence to show that. So out-of-body experiences are not something that are dangerous and not something hard to do. You do it every night for 3 hours. You just don't remember them unless you're trained specifically, and there are techniques and tapes, etc., to do that. But the second figure on the highlight section of your homepage is about what's called the 37-degree technique. Now, this is very interesting. This was discovered, intimate research. Look at this. The top figure is from the Lascaux cave drawings. This is about 15 to 20,000 BC. These cave drawings have been around, and pictured all over the place. What they show is the shaman has killed an auroch, which is like a buffalo in those days, and he's got his like little bird on a stick. He's a shaman. This is like his way he does his little rituals.
Right.
But if you measure the angle of which he is lying on this cave compared to the auroch, the animal, it's 37 degrees. Okay, now. Okay, so that's 15, 20,000 years ago. Now, Osiris, in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, is pictured next. This is about, we don't know the origin of the Egyptian Book of the Dead. They think it's 4,000 or 5,000 BC. Some think it's older than that. But it's definitely younger than the 15 to 20,000 BC of the cave drawing. Osiris is preparing to leave his body, and you notice you can't see his left arm. Left is always the hidden part in metaphysics.
Why is that?
It's the Egyptians always like to keep secrets, you know. They didn't, everything was orally transmitted. It's only by the Greeks that we got the mystery schools and the rituals. The Egyptians never wrote those down. The Greeks did, of course, and that's how we got it. But it's just a way of playing a hide-and-seek game. Anyway, Osiris is a 37-degree angle. And back in the 1950s and 60s, they came up with this platform, which is the third picture, which was a device to get you into the out-of-body experience. Now, the 37-degree technique does work. Folks, you don't have to go out and buy a platform or go into the cave or go into meet Osiris. You can use simple CDs and techniques that I describe in my books to do this. But I want to give some nice techniques and some nice hints about how your listeners can go out of the body consciously and do it safely. And it's always safe. I've been out of the body over 3,000 times, as I've mentioned before. There has never been a physical or psychological harm or death associated ever with out-of-body experiences in all the research in the last 200 years of scientific research.
Did you ever think, Bruce, you couldn't get back in?
No, I never had that problem.
Never.
I look, George, one thing about me that I'm sure you know over the years, I have no fear.
No, you don't.
I'm a psychically...
You walk on a bed of nails. You don't have fears.
If I met Tony Robbins, I still wouldn't have fears. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so here are some helpful hints. One is that you, before going to sleep, tell yourself you're going to remember your out-of-body experiences during the dream state. In other words, have confidence. Cut down on your food intake prior, or fast even, prior to your out-of-body experience attempts. Do not eat anything just prior to the actual exercise, okay? You want to eat, when you do eat, mainly fruits and vegetables. Avoid meat, red meat especially, okay? Refrain from eating nuts of any kind, especially peanuts, even though peanuts are a member of the pea family.
Really? I love peanuts.
I know, but the problem is you may create gas that cows are known to give out, okay? And you don't want to do that, okay? All right? The atmosphere doesn't need that either, okay? Carrots, raw eggs, and liquids of all types actually aid in out-of-body experiences. You want to abstain. Now, this is a biggie. I get this all the time from several of your listeners. Abstain from all alcohol, tobacco, and recreational drugs. Unless you want to go to the lower astral plane and meet Darth Vader and Dick Cheney, you don't want to do it, folks, okay? Lose the drugs, okay? This is natural. Warm weather actually favors astral voyages. You want to keep your room a few degrees above room temperature. Do not attempt astral projection during a thunderstorm. Now, it's not dangerous. Let me tell you why. Every dimension has a sound characteristic associated with it. The earth plane, the physical plane that we live in, is a thunder, like a thunderstorm. So therefore, it's almost like you're swimming upstream like a salmon, okay? You want to do it when the storm is over. It's going to actually delay and maybe even prevent your out-of-body experience and conscious memory thereof. The sound of thunder is always associated with the physical plane, okay? Wear loose clothing or nothing at all, okay? Make your initial attempts in complete darkness or very, very dim light. You don't want to have a bright room at all. It's going to
No, that won't work.
Won't work at all, okay? Make sure there is dead silence. Lose the music, and you don't want to have distracting incense burning, or you just don't do any of that. You want to be as calm, as relaxing, as natural as possible. You want to be as calm, as relaxing, as natural as possible. And this is not a group thing. Do it alone. Practice this alone. Time your trials late at night, right before you normally retire. This is the easiest way to get into it. And you want to practice lucid dreaming techniques. Lucid dreaming works best between 5 and 8 in the morning. All the research, Stephen LeBerg in San Francisco and others, they all tell you the same thing. Okay? You want to lie on your right side if you're going to lie on your side for best results. Never lie on your left side. Listen to Osiris. Okay? You just don't do it. Left side, for some reason, it inhibits. We don't know why, but it does. Now, before going to bed, just say to yourself you're going to have a conscious recall of your out-of-body experience attempts during the day, and repeat this very often, always with confidence. You want to be psychically empowered. Always be alone and in a quiet, comfortable environment, as I mentioned. Relaxation is the key. You want to deep breathing, breathe deeply and rhythmically, and it's important to exhale and as inhale. In other words, you don't want to hold your breath, okay? Choose a target if you want to visit someone, like a remote viewing, and select the location on this dimension or any other dimension and describe it to yourself in detail. And then request assistance from the universe and your higher self to help travel there. Your higher self is always going to help you with out-of-body experience. Allow your body to vibrate, and while breathing deeply and relaxed, your body will begin to vibrate. Vibration is a natural beginning phase of out-of-body experience. Allow this process to happen gradually, and you'll become more accustomed to it, okay? Now, the reason these dimensions that we're talking about, the astral plane, the causal plane, the mental, etheric, and soul plane, as we talk about, the reason why they're invisible and scientific equipment can't get them is because they vibrate at a higher frequency than our universe. They're in the fifth dimension. We function in a three-dimensional mentality, okay?
And last night, by the way, Bruce had a couple physicists on who now believe we have at least 9 dimensions.
Well, actually, the 13th dimension is my paradigm, but the numbers don't mean anything. It's yada, yada, yada. Okay, whether it's 19 or 99, let's put it this way. There's more than a few, and you can go to them. So, don't worry about the numbers. This is the case where numbers don't really matter. When the astral body begins to separate from its physical counterpart, by the way, the M theory has 11 dimensions, which is the current theory combining the 5 string theories. Okay. Edward Witten and Princeton University came up with that. Two of those dimensions are actually mathematical things for the equation, so they're all like 9 dimensions, like you mentioned, but they use 11 for the mentality. When the astral body begins to separate from its physical counterpart, a tingling sensation is often felt in the stomach, chest, and solar plexus areas. These are chakra areas. Okay. The astral body always appears younger, thinner, and taller, and more attractive than our physical body. Now you know why people like to go out of the body, right? Okay. Animals, by the way, leave their body regularly too. I have a pet, my Karma the Third, my miniature schnauzer, pure black and just adorable. She leaves the body too.
How do you know that?
Well, because I've seen her on the astral plane. Okay.
Okay.
I mean, she jumps in my lap there too. Okay. All right. Although our soul leaves the physical body during the out-of-body experience, please, folks, do not worry. A copy of its consciousness and memory stays with the physical body. You need not be concerned about being unprotected or being possessed or having a lower astral entity play games with you. You're going to be, if you use my techniques, the CDs, whatever, there's white light protection and many other sophistication techniques of protection, you're never going to have a problem, okay? Many voyages report a click or popping sound at the moment of separation, very often by the left ear, interestingly enough. Okay? You always want to keep your eyes closed during projection. It will reduce the distraction. Now, metal objects, especially jewelry, this is important for women especially, interfere with projection attempts. It's best to leave the jewelry off your body and have your head facing north if you're lying down. The week of the full moon facilitates out-of-body experiences more so than any other time of the month.
Why is that?
It's just full moon, the effects on our tides, our body, our hormones. It's just the full moon is the energy from it, the gravitational pull.
So that's the time to do it.
Well, you can do it any time, but I mean, you're going to have more success during that time. Especially in the beginning when you're not used to it. Once you get success and do it routinely, then it's going to be second nature to you. If you want to meet specific people in the fifth dimension, the better you know the individual, the more likely you're able to reach them. So not all your listeners are going to visit you, George, okay? All right. Looking away helps stabilize the projection. Staring at a shiny metal object is also recommended. Briefly looking at your hands, interestingly enough, and then looking away helps actually stabilize your projection so you can control it and decide where you want to go. Many astral voyages describe the astral plane from above as a combination of vertical and horizontal grid lines. So this is normal, giving it a somewhat checkered appearance over its surface. Brilliant multicolored geometric designs are also reported. Okay? A blackout is experienced at the precise moment of separation. A silver cord is visible. If you turn around, you'll see it, of course. Bright, vivid colors and unusual sounds are detected because each dimension has different sounds characteristic of that dimension. I describe all this, of course, in the Exploring book. Dual consciousness is exhibited, which means that you're aware of your physical body on the earth plane as well as your astral or spiritual body, whichever dimensional body you're occupying. If you go to the causal plane, you'll be in your causal body, whichever spiritual dimension you're on. Okay? Most beginning astral voyagers or astral travelers pass through physical objects. They're unable to touch or move them or hold them. Once you get more used to this and more experienced, then you can actually concentrate your astral matter, and then you can pick up objects. So it's a matter of just timing. Now you're in the astral plane. How do you know? Are you on the upper or the lower? This is important.
That's a good question.
Okay, you definitely don't want to be low. This is how you tell. If you feel the feelings of confusion and bewilderment, you're on the lower astral plane. The upper astral.
And what's the difference between the upper and the lower?
Well, feelings of alertness, peace, and happiness is the upper. You're going to feel very cool, very nice, and very safe, and very loved, so to speak. Okay. If you see a misty, foggy environment like you're looking through cheesecloth, that's the lower astral plane. The upper astral plane will give you an Earth-like and beautiful environment. Okay. The presence of bizarre and evil inhabitants, evil entities, that's the lower astral plane. ETs and reptilians and pixies and trolls and all these gargoyles like you see on buildings in New York and Europe, okay? That's the lower astral plane. The presence of human inhabitants will be on the upper astral. You see the difference? The lower astral is noisy and disorganized. The upper astral is quiet and organized. The lower astral has no possibility of spiritual growth because your higher self does not go to the lower astral plane. You are in a bad neighborhood, and you are in trouble when you're on the lower astral. The upper astral, you have unlimited access to your higher self. Therefore, spiritual growth is unlimited, and especially healing, as we talked about, and all the other things. Now, when you meet people while out of the body, how do you know whether you're doing it out of the body, you're using the techniques properly, you're on the upper astral plane or any of the other dimensions? They're all positive except for the lower astral and this one. Okay? So how do you know whether you're meeting a physical person or is it a fellow astral entity? Well, physical plane people will be preoccupied with the earth plane. They don't notice you and won't look at you when you speak to them, like Los Angeles.
Sure. And aren't we projecting, Bruce, every night when we go to sleep?
Yes. Right.
Anyway.
Right. As I mentioned, we go through the REM cycle, the dream cycle is 3 hours a night of out-of-body experiences every night.
Locked in, guaranteed.
Okay. Now, if you see an astral entity rather than the preoccupation of the physical plane, the astral entities are not preoccupied. They look at you and they speak telepathically, as they don't speak verbally. It's all a telepathic communication in the fifth dimension. If you meet a physical plane person, they're always affected by gravity. When you're in the fifth dimension and you meet fifth dimensional entities, they can fly, they can levitate, they can teleport, they can do anything they want. Okay, gravity is irrelevant. If you see the auric field around the person, it's irregular and discolored. That's a physical person on the physical plane. Clear, regularly shaped, and evenly colored auras will be characteristic of astral entities or any spiritual entity. I'm going to use the word astral to keep it simple. Physical plane people wear contemporary clothes. Astral entities wear out-of-place clothes, usually of their favorite past life. So they may be dressing like the Renaissance, and that's who they are. You know. So it's interesting. Now, here's something about physical medical procedures about out-of-body experiences. During an OBE, your skin will appear very dry and warm to the touch. The brain waves, the EEG will show this, tend to exhibit a narrow frequency band and produce visible distortions of the body along with a deep state of physical relaxation. So we can measure when somebody's actually out of the body. Dream laboratories have been doing this for years. Now, people who say, well, doctor, this is all garbage and this is, this is fantasy and this is just whatever. Okay. Well, back in the 50s and 60s in Brooklyn, New York, the Maimonides Dream Laboratory with Krippner and Olner did a lot of precognitive experiences. They had precognitive dreams. Now, you can't standardize precognition. They got horse racing results, ball game results, etc., all very documented in the 60s and 70s. But Charles Todd is one of my favorite researchers. He's at the University of California, Davies now. He used to be University of Virginia. And he had an experiment done where a test subject was lying down in a laboratory, of course, viewed all night long. They recorded video cameras, etc., and there was a ceiling or like a drop ceiling, a full ceiling above the person, and there was a 5-digit number placed in this under this like lead-lined ceiling. Okay, so you couldn't see it. Okay, at the following morning when they woke up, they said what was the number, and the subject gave the exact 5-digit number in order.
Perfect.
The odds against that happening randomly is 100,000 to 1. Okay?
They were there.
They were there. Okay, so now, here's another thing. I'll make a statement, and please, your listeners, I get emails and calls from them. You can burn a cross on my front lawn if this isn't relevant, okay? I'll bet you everybody out there, you too, George, have dreams of flying and falling. Like you're falling into an abyss, but you don't splash.
Right.
The flying is when you're actually leaving the body or just traveling on the astral plane. The falling is when you're returning back to the earth body, okay? The paralysis is also common in both dreams as well as out-of-body experiences. The out-of-body experiences and dreams. The dreams are actually out-of-body experiences. Now, you can eliminate the paralysis by protection techniques, and my CT2 do that, so you don't have to worry about it. Because paralysis scares people and makes them all uptight. Once you get fear, you forget about the out-of-body experience, okay? Now, there's been a lot of good scientific research. We got people from the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s, Celia Green, Waldo Vieira, more recently, Susan Blackmore, Robert Bruce, my Australian buddy, and you know him too, Robert Krukol from the 60s and 70s, William Buhlman, you know him. These are researchers that have documented, so out-of-body experiences, folks, are real, okay? They just are, and I'll tell you, it's a trip, and it's part of our experience of ascension. Remember, the whole theme of this show is ascension. When you're out of the body, you can meet who? Time travelers from our future. They're us in the future, but they will help us grow spiritually. Spirit guides, that's their job. That's what their union tells them to do, okay? Angels, they're rare. It's hard to see an angel, but occasionally they can. They travel in the fifth dimension, and they can also help you with the concept of moving into the idea of moving spiritual growth for ascension mentality. So the next phase of that would be what? Teleportation.
Let's talk about that when we come back, Bruce, and we'll also take some phone calls with you. Dr. Bruce Goldberg, right here on Coast to Coast AM, his website, drbrucegoldberg.com, that's DR, and it's linked up at coasttocoastam.com. And Dr. Bruce Goldberg with us this hour. It's a split show. Next hour, of course, we are going to be talking about Planet X with Marshall Masters. Make sure you're part of the show. We will be back in a moment. We're going to talk about teleportation and take your calls on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back, Bruce Goldberg with us. Bruce, before we go to the many calls for you, teleportation, huh?
Yes. Well, let's talk about teleportation. First, again, one quick thing. People are so confused. They asked me about that CD offer. If they buy the book, Exploring the Fifth Dimension, through my site, they get the free CD. If they just want the written exercise and don't have a computer, if they call my toll-free number, they get the written exercise. But please, folks, if you have a computer, everything is on the site. Videos, articles, everything is on there. Also, 18 of my books are now in audio. Amazon Audible has 18 of my books on audio books, those that like to listen in the car.
Well, a lot of people who are here visually impaired, too.
Right. Also, if you're listening to a book on the car, it's auto-hypnosis. Okay, so let's talk about teleportation.
Teleportation, and then your many calls.
Here's a statement of one of my patients who actually described what it was like to teleport. I'll just quote just a few sentences. It felt almost like I was caught in a giant web. Suddenly, the world exploded into countless billions of glowing threads. They stretched away in all directions, and they intersected everything, including me. The overall effect was very similar to looking at a hologram, except it was visceral as well as visual. You could see/feel the image. Now, when people do teleportation, by the way, is safe. You're not going to wind up underwater in the middle of a mountain and die. That's not going to happen. I've never heard of that, and I've teleported myself, and I've described in the past as well as my patients. If you are observing somebody who's actually being teleported, you will see their bodies slowly fade away and disappear. Not the Star Trek sprinkles, okay? That's Hollywood. That's not going to happen, okay?
But it looks so good, Bruce.
I know it does. And Scotty isn't there either with his Scottish accent. Okay. Nothing else in the environment would be altered, okay? Teleportation, a person undergoing teleportation would experience an increase in the energy vibrating at a high speed, like an out-of-body experience, except it's much higher vibration. Remember, teleportation, you're physically moving from one place to another. An out-of-body experience, it's the soul that's occupying a different body in the spiritual dimension. Physical movement is teleportation. Now, you also have a tingling, buzzing sensation and a feeling of spiraling. We heard this before about out-of-body experiences, will emanate from the top of the head. Your body must be well rested to assure success. It's the most difficult technique in hypnosis, I can tell you. There's nothing more difficult to do than teleportation, and it's not predictable either. You will find it easiest to teleport at night, since your body has had many spontaneous teleportation experiences while dreaming. So dreams are not only out-of-body experiences, but people have actually teleported. Women have reported their husbands disappearing for several minutes in the middle of the night. But they didn't go anywhere. The car was there and everything. They didn't leave the house, and they reappeared, okay?
Is this conscious teleportation or unconscious?
No, it's not unconscious. It's semi-conscious because they're in the REM cycle. So they're not unconscious, but they're not aware of what they're doing. Okay, let's put that.
Almost like sleepwalking.
Yeah, except sleep teleporting. How's that? Okay. The natural tendency is to hold your breath during a teleportation because it is an extreme experience. Safe, but it's weird, okay? You must resist the temptation and breathe consciously and take slow, deep breaths. You want to oxygenate your brain. It will help you to facilitate the experience. You will feel lightheaded with a swirling and upward spiraling sensation during the process. Sometimes a feeling of tightness across the eyebrows, the third eye area, is described, and your perception at your desired location will appear as if you were looking at your location through a keyhole. It's a very unusual experience. And remember the case I reported a couple of years ago about that the case, a woman, I call her Vivian, who was on the freeway in Los Angeles here, and a boyfriend, a very abusive one, threw her out of the car, and she was about to be killed by coming somebody.
And disappeared.
And she just remembered the post-hypnotic training that I gave her, because she worked with me with teleportation, out-of-body training, and she thought of that technique. And the next thing she knew, she twisted her ankle so she couldn't move away from the car that was coming at her. The next thing she knew, she was in her apartment on her living room couch with a very sore ankle. The car went through where her body was. Both her boyfriend and the car in the opposite direction observed it. They stopped the car and they freaked. They said, like, what is going on here? You know, I mean, she went into the tear in the fabric of time in the into the fifth dimension, teleported back to her apartment, and thank goodness, as I work with her later on, she dropped this guy, broke up with this guy, and met Mr. Right.
Well, let's hope so.
And, but I mean, that's pretty heavy stuff. This guy could have been, this is like murder, manslaughter, or whatever time. Okay?
Bruce, we've gotten calls from people during open lines where a car is coming right at them. They're in another car, and they both seem to blend into each other and come out, and nobody got hit.
Right, and this is almost like a time slip experience, too. It's very similar. What you're doing is, remember, these are tears in the fabric of space-time. One of the problems with time travel from our future, the first 300 years of time travel, they use a device called the WLA, the Wormhole Linear Accelerator, which enlarges a wormhole to classic size and allows a team with a vehicle to go through that and back in time. The problem is when they did that for 300 years, the